Welcome everyone to our Tech Insider Update. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to cover today, so we'll probably try and move fast. We will have people on the chat thread trying to respond to questions. If we can't get to everything, we will respond later or follow up with you. Our goal today is just to give you a quick high-level overview, a quick touch base on what we're seeing changing in the Microsoft technology stack, what we're seeing in the market with different customers and where people are having success or changes that you should be aware of. Just to jump in real quick to give you an introduction to JourneyTEAM and who we are. We're a team of about 85 people now focused on Microsoft technology implementations, consulting, and support. I've worked with over 300 customers in the last year. We've been around for over 26 years now. We have a heavy focus on making sure we have happy, referenceable customers. We've got a strong partnership with Microsoft. The gold competencies that we have just are a way of showing our expertise and that we've passed exams and different requirements and have the expertise in the different areas where we work. And we've completed a bunch of projects, so probably over 1,500 projects now in the past 5 years. We received various awards and recognitions. Last year, we were recognized as one of Microsoft's Partners of the Year in the US. And we also just recently received an Inc. Magazine Best Workplaces Award, which I think is meaningful for our customers because we have great retention of our team. And that means the team you're working with today on a project will likely be around for a long time to come and be here to support you. We work broadly across the entire Microsoft stack and ecosystem. Everything from Dynamics ERP or customer engagement solutions to Power BI and the Common Data Service, Microsoft 365, Intune, AI, Azure solutions as well. We believe that one of the key values we bring to our customers is our ability to deliver integrated solutions across various technologies in the Microsoft stack and deliver as a single team. We've got various presenters today. So some of the different people that lead our team, Eric Bynes on the Dynamics 365 customer engagement team, Eric Roth. We apparently didn't have a picture for Richard Cloyce, so we got a good feeling there. Preston leads our BI team, Kip on the knowledge management side, and then Dave's our marketing director. The real brief look at our agenda today, we're going to cover some remote workforce topics, cloud, Office 365, Teams, SharePoint. We'll get into some Dynamics 365 customer engagement, marketing, and insight stuff, Power Platform, Exchange Online, D365 ERP, and then Power BI business analytics, and then touch on some cybersecurity and Azure AD stuff. Very quickly, COVID-19 is a hot topic for everyone. Of course, we're seeing the impact in the workplace, the way we work, the way we deploy solutions and support various organizations. Today, we'll try and cover some of that as we go through the different areas that we've got lined out in that agenda. But overall, we're just seeing changes in the marketplace and how we work. Naturally, remote access, security, a solid adoption and change management plan as you roll out new technologies to your organization is key. If you don't already have some of the stuff in place to work remotely well, we're helping a lot of people deploy Teams, Office 365 components right now, security assessments to make sure that as you deploy things outside to a remote workforce are very key to make sure stuff's secured correctly. If you guys need help with any of that stuff, if you're struggling with how to work remotely, how to enable your workforce, we're here to help, and we'd be happy to have a quick conversation after this call, set something up and see, whether it's you need help with Azure App Proxy, deploying legacy applications remotely, or whatever it is. We've got a lot of experience and have gotten a lot more experience in that space over the last few months. So with that, we'll turn it over to Eric Roth to jump into some of those technologies.
Yeah, so we'll do a couple of real-world solutions here for remote work. Is the Azure AD App Proxy. If you're not familiar with this is one of my favorite features of Azure AD Premium. And that allows us to publish on-prem applications to the internet without needing to set up inbound email or inbound connectivity, okay? So what that means is that the security team is going to love it because we don't have to have incoming connections directly from the internet to your network. and it integrates with Azure AD for single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, conditional access, and you don't have to also be on VPN. So we've done a bunch of these in the last month. There's some really nice value that comes from this, and it works really well for most of the cases. The other thing is some information that Microsoft has published recently. They've actually published a lot of stuff. This reference link I've got in the slide deck here has really good information about some VPN configuration, recommendations for Microsoft on that. So if you are dealing with remote workforce, you are having them VPN in, then you definitely want to take a look at this. It talks about the ability to continue to route that traffic to Microsoft versus the on-prem and optimize that for that scenario. So that's all I'm going to say on that, but lots of good things with the app proxy and definitely VPN considerations that you need to understand and look at around that. So we'll jump into cloud and Office 365. I'm going to take the first one here. Our favorite theme with Microsoft is new names are coming. So what this means is as of April, end of April coming up, there will be product name changes. Okay, it's just to the name. There's no feature or pricing changes to quote Microsoft at this time. So that's TBD. We'll see where that ends up. But in short, if you're using Office 365 Business Essentials, that's now becoming Microsoft 365 Business Basic. So they're dropping the Office nomenclature and it's all rolling, well, most of it's rolling to Microsoft 365 nomenclature, okay? So Business Essentials to Business Basic, Business Premium is going to Standard, and Business is going to Premium. Okay, and the biggest thing that you probably have heard, or that it's going to affect you here, is the naming of the Office apps. Office Pro Plus, right? Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, etc. That is now all being now called Microsoft 365 apps. They're not distinguishing the naming of it between mobile and desktop or Mac or whatever, right? It's just Microsoft 365 apps. Okay, so there's a nice reference link there that gives you a bunch of Q&A and more information and all that good stuff. So check that out. Be aware those name changes are coming.
At first, I was going to get excited because then our families actually think or will stop thinking that we specialize in Word and Excel and PowerPoint. But it sounds like that's being continued, the confusion of what is Office and what we do here at JourneyTEAM.
Yep.
All right, another area around Office 365 is a general update that I want to bring up that I think is super, super critical is around the discussion of Office 365 groups. If you do not know what I'm talking about, this is the sprawl that happens when a user creates a team or a SharePoint site or sometimes a planner. And if you haven't been working with us to get that under control and have some proper information architecture around that, you need to, period. This is kind of the Achilles heel of moving to Office 365, and it's one of the major things that so many companies overlook, and it becomes a major pain point for them. Now, around that, we have some updates, and around these 365 groups, we now have the ability to do sensitivity labeling, where we actually can apply unique policies around 365 groups. We can make them highly confidential or tie them to groups, and that not just classifies the 365 group, but it also allows and disallows certain functionality. So that capability is coming. It's really, and if you wanted to Google a term, the term you should be Googling is information protection and governance around 365 groups. That will give you more information around these sensitivity labels. Also, when we provision 365 groups, you get a forms work group that is auto provisioned as part of this process. Flow or Power Automate also has a workspace that's tied to a 365 group. And then another update is when you provision a team by default through the Teams application, that team no longer will show up in your address list in your organization. This is a major change by Microsoft. Some people will like that, some people will not like that. So just keep in mind that auto provisioning of 365 groups within Teams will not be showing in the GAL. And then lastly, as a call to action, 365 group provisioning and the management around this is complex. There are actually 20 different ways to create a 365 group. I'd say probably half of them, the user would have no idea that they're actually doing that. And there's not a single place within the 365 ecosystem that allows you to provision a group with all the settings in one place. Thus, the reason for JourneyTEAM, we are in the process of building a group provisioning and management tool. If that is something that's on your radar that you feel would benefit your organization, please make a comment or reach out to us and we can provide a demo. All right, quick updates. I know no one's using Yammer because Yammer is horrible. I'm just joking. So Yammer, for you Yammer guys, it's like I think the Yammer user is like the Mac user. It's like this subcult of the technology world. So for you Yammer people, believe it or not, Microsoft is updating your product and you have now a new Yammer application, an improved UI and everything. Yeah, it's gnarly. So if you're using Yammer, look for that new UI coming out. It keeps the sweet part that's consistent across Office 365. And I'll cover this a little bit later. There's now a Yammer integration app within Microsoft Teams, so you can access your Yammer from there. The only question you have is, why post in Yammer if I can post in Teams? I don't know. I'm just saying. It's kind of confusing. All right, next. All right, Teams updates. We'll go over these quick. And this is all about like remote workforce, right? So, and here's one benefit of COVID-19 is Microsoft like really pushed a lot of this functionality really fast. And a lot of it has to do with capabilities that are available in Zoom that were not available in Teams. And now all of a sudden they're in Teams, right? Because Microsoft's competing. So it's good, right? So first off, background effects. We can blur backgrounds, of course, if you guys haven't figured that out. We can now also upload and use custom backgrounds. iOS on Apple phone or on iPhones, you guys now have blur capabilities on the iOS. And now we have a 9 webcam view versus just the classic 4. Guests in lobby.
And that's going up too.
Yeah.
Continue to go up.
And what's nice about it too is even if you exceed the 9, you will still get videos of the thumbnails across the bottom, where before it just like switched you over to like an icon.
Yeah.
Raising of hand capability has been added. This is really, really big, especially for organizations that if you have a few hundred people and you're doing a cast across the entire organization, you can't have people talking without raising their hands. This was one major pitfall that Teams had that I think Zoom had. And of course, now we have raising hands. We can end meetings on behalf of everyone. Live captions, which is super fun. It will literally dictate what is being said. We've tried a lot of curse words. Eric Bynes has a really bad mouth, and it by default did not say the bad words that he says on a regular basis. So that was really good. Don't tell us, kids. All right. We can download the attendees list off of a meeting, and then also we can set up an announcement when people join and or leave a call. And there's some even additional configs that I'd even mention on here. Like for instance, people outside your organization have to wait in the waiting room. You can turn that on and those kind of things, but we're trying to keep this sweet and quick. Few updates. Actually, I think that's on the other side, but 250 people within a Teams meeting is now allowed. If we look at Teams live events, which is slightly different. If you want more details, we can give you that, but you're up to 20,000 attendees, 50 events at the same time, and a broadcast that lasts up to 16 hours is allowed. Because that happens all the time. All right, other capabilities, channel cross-post editing. So this was a new functionality that we talked about in our last tech update where you could do a post across multiple teams and multiple channels. You can now edit that post and it will propagate across those published areas. I mentioned this increase to 250. Team analytics. So you can actually go to a team if you're the owner and actually view analytics around that team. How often meetings are happening, chats, involvements, posts, that kind of stuff. New Yammer app, I mentioned that already. And a few highlighted items on the Teams admin panel would be a policy around user profiles, where we can actually, Teams will honor the profile settings and users can't change their profile photo in Teams if it's already been established somewhere else. The admin center of Teams has new insights around meetings and usage, as well as other dashboard analytic data around just meetings in general. So, Rob, anything you would add on the Teams front?
You don't have to do anything to get them. The Teams client will auto update, and don't go looking to try to download it, blah, blah, blah. It'll auto update. These features should just show up and light up.
Yeah, the beauty of the cloud, right? It's like one day you're like, oh,
new stuff.
There's a little hand there. Now I can raise my hand. So if it's not coming, it should be rolling out. All the features, by the way, all those features are rolling out. So if you don't have them, I've been really careful not to talk about future things because Microsoft often pushes out deadlines. Those are all things that you should be getting if you haven't gotten them already. All right, let's talk about SharePoint, baby. All right, make this quick. Thank goodness, like everyone's cheering right now in the webinar. So modern search is now customizable. So the key thing is, before this has been locked down to us, if you want to use refiners and customize the search experience, you got to stay classic. We can now go to modern and we can build our own modern search pages, fully extensible, open source, we can build them. The key indicator on whether this is available to you or not is if that search bar is in the suite bar at the very top of your Office 365 subscription. Once that bar is up there, we can hijack the search box, send it to a custom search results page, and go from there. Next. Here's examples. We have connectors. So here's an example of us pulling in data from like ServiceNow. There's other views where we can automate the display template, showing contact info. It's highly extensible. It's really what we were able to do before, we can now do in modern. And I think for the biggest thing for a lot of our clients that have held on to classic search, they've held on to it because of the refiners in search. We can now do those refiners in modern. All right, SharePoint updated term store. This is coming. If you don't know what the term store is, think of this as your organization's taxonomy. These are classification types across the entire ecosystem that can be consumed within SharePoint. And we're getting a new updated UI for the term store. This in itself is a value add, but this is actually tied to a bigger conversation, which I'll touch briefly a little bit later, which is Project Cortex is coming. And I'll talk about Project Cortex, but this supports Cortex. Mover, we already know this, Microsoft purchased Mover, is now available worldwide. We have done multiple migrations with Mover. One of the things that a lot of our clients don't realize is Mover actually has sync capabilities. So we can actually do Delta syncs with Mover, and it's a free product from Microsoft, will help us migrate from file shares to on-prem or even within a tenant. So really, really cool free add by Microsoft. All right, I talked about this briefly earlier, information protection and governance. This is the security and the compliance aspect of SharePoint and your data. Think of it this way, if I had to classify or if I had to summarize this, this is all about sensitivity labeling and retention policies, right? We can secure records within your tenant. We can classify them as a record, and we can set rules and policies around retainment, review, and disposal of records. This leverages, we have some scanning capabilities where we can leverage machine learning capabilities and auto classify content within your ecosystem, and then ultimately have audit trails around records and content. This is a really, really in-depth but very powerful conversation when we talk about securing our content, specifying information as records, and handling them appropriately when it comes to keeping them for a longevity of time, but also about auto deletion, so we can meet those requirements and legal obligations that so many of us have to follow. Here's an example of information protection. Like, really talk about this from a SharePoint perspective, but like I alluded to earlier, this integrates into the ecosystem. So in this example, I can go into a PowerPoint and actually classify the sensitivity of this document, and I can inject watermarks, headers, and footers based on the sensitivity labels. And the little screenshot here towards the bottom left, here's the sensitivity level around provisioning a team. If I specify the team as a project, guess what? It can't be public, it can't be org-wide, and then it applies a number of settings within the provisioning process of teams as well. All right, future things coming. Headers are changing in SharePoint. We're getting analytics on hub sites. Microsoft Lists, which is kind of like a quasi new app kind of capability, and Project Cortex. And I'll just touch on them just really briefly, just to show you guys some eye candy. So the first off, Lists is getting really, really powerful. And I'm really excited about this. So we have the capability of a very rich UI. Microsoft is providing a number of templates and capabilities and built-in integration into Teams and from SharePoint. and you can provision these new lists from either ecosystem. The second thing, and here's an example of like a powerful list, the new lists coming. This is future stuff, but I want to put it on people's radar that we're getting this capability. The other thing that's really powerful that you need to really keep your eyes on is Project Cortex. This is Microsoft's approach in the space of knowledge management and building knowledge repositories. And what's really critical about this is in the past, we talked about taxonomies and the power of taxonomy to classify data, to find it, and to use it for like sensitivity purposes. The problem was you had to tag content. That's the number one Achilles heel on all of these projects is it's really powerful data, but when someone uploads a document, they're gonna have to fill out all this content. Well, with Project Cortex, that's changing. Microsoft is using machine learning and their artificial intelligence, so then that way when we upload documents into SharePoint, into Teams, or actually even when you're seeing documents from within Outlook, it is actually auto-classifying content. We're getting interactive cards, glossaries, it'll improve search, the taxonomy will be greatly improved, and then we have these rules and models that we can build to auto-classify content. This is, in my opinion, a major game changer in the space of knowledge management and information architecture. And stay tuned, continue to come to these tech updates because this is on its way, and we'll keep you guys updated through our newsletter, but also through these future tech updates as well. All right, forms. Sorry, guys, I'm hurrying. All right, embedded forms in emails and Teams, smile rating, progress bars. Forms is updated. There's lots of admin settings coming as well. Activity reports, the mobile experience has been improved. I think embed or saving form data to the common data service is a big improvement as well. So just stay involved, keep playing with forms. It's evolving, it's changing quite a bit. Another future teaser, there are changes coming to Planner and Teams. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to jump onto the next tech update. I'll tell you later, or as Mandy Vines is going to tell you. But that's it.
No, not yet. We won't go to project operations this update. First off, I wanted to start with some of the marketing changes that have been coming out in customer engagement. As release wave 1 is now available for folks to begin applying to their tenants. Marketing has made a number of changes to match it and make it better than some of its competitors out in the space. And we're going to go through some of those today. Email template designer updates, the customer journey toolbox, event management, and then we'll talk about Forms Pro and how that's been embedded into marketing. So one of the things that irritated me with marketing to begin with when it first started was actually using the designer. It was very limited. It didn't allow you to do a number of things. And so I've thrown on here the top items that I felt were great changes. You can now drag to resize images when you put them in there. So you don't have to actually go back to your image editor and change them. You don't have to know how to change things in HTML. Like it's I don't know, it's a crazy idea that you would actually allow somebody to drag and resize an image when you place it into a template. Same thing is you couldn't actually put picture, and this should be picture or text over picture. They were actually stacked on one another. Again, why would you not allow that when you release an email designer? But they've repented for their sins, they've corrected it, now they can do that. The other thing is that previously using the Litmus software, you could do a preview. One, it took a long time to load. Two, it didn't necessarily render exactly like it would in a tablet or mobile view. And they have now fixed that, and doing the email preview for both the device and the inbox preview have been improved. And then the other thing is that they've created a number of new forms and templates. A lot of those are already pre-built with the subscription center, so all of those wonderful policy settings that you have to be able to provide. And they've updated the toolbox controls over on the right to make it a little easier to grab those and put them into your email designer. The next piece in the customer journey toolbox and some of the things that they've added in are that now you can put expiration dates on your email messages. So if you want to make sure that time-sensitive materials or making sure that information doesn't become out of date in what you want to send, you can actually say that I want to make sure that this email that we're using, this template, stops going out on this date. So that way, if somebody joins a segment late and for whatever reason you didn't match your dates up for how long the customer journey runs, the email will stop so that it's not sending out old information, and then all of those segment participants will be stuck in that in processing flow portion of the customer journey. And then the other thing, you'll notice that there are some new items that have been added to the toolbox. We'll talk about Forms Pro a little bit later, but then the other one down in the bottom of the screen is that you can now actually use custom content controls. So this is anything that if you've worked with your designers or you want to have your own custom buttons beyond what you have available in the toolbox, you are now able to embed your own custom controls. These can be things that point to Power Apps. They can be things that point to guest shared web parts, Teams links. So very cool functionality, does require some deeper technical knowledge, but does allow you to have a more interactive both customer journey and potentially your content of how you want to track things. Okay. One item that I don't know how many people have actually understood or come to leverage, but the event management capabilities in D365 for marketing are actually pretty robust. They do rival things around what Cvent does and some of these other larger platforms that manage events. And they've done it in a way that now you're building on the power of your sales CRM, where you have all of your contacts and your leads. So some of the things that are nice is that they have already pre-built a number of registration forms. So when you create an event, it's already going to associate an event registration form capture for you. And so it'll link that to there. So now when you launch your landing page, you have your registration form built. Same thing with agendas. As you build out your agenda and your sessions and you link all of those, once you save them and say, hey, it's ready to go live, it automatically adds that out to your event page. Other thing is it will generate QR scanning. So once you've got everybody registered, there's now a unique QR for that attendee. When they show up to events, you can use the Dynamics app and the camera capability, scan their QR code, and it will automatically check them into either that event or that session. So it will generate for each one. And then lastly, some of the things that we don't truly appreciate those that put on events, but all the guest logistics, the room coordination, who's in charge of a room, how many hotel rooms did we get at this hotel? What about this other hotel? Who's checked in there? What are their special needs? There are a number of things that D365 Event Management has accommodated and put together in this tool that I think are extremely powerful, and I'm looking forward to using this for our event this year. Okay, and now the Forms Pro piece. So one thing that I'll call out is both in the email designer and in the flow, you're able to call or embed native Forms Pro surveys. So this is where surveys can be attached and associated to your email templates. They can be used as segment definitions, meaning people that have filled out this form this way, it's now in the segment designer. So now you have a broader data set to be able to define the people that you want to target messages to. And then the other thing is that survey responses will go back into the results of your customer journey and become trigger points. So based on the results of a survey, you could say, oh, send them down this path in my marketing automation, or send them down this other if they answered a different way. So very powerful stuff that Microsoft's now embedded with Forms Pro and D365 for marketing. All right, I'll take a quick breath. And now we'll jump into some of the updates that are live in sales now. And so we may have talked about these a little bit last time about what was coming, but now these are items that are in place within sales. So first is the Kanban board. Next, we'll talk about the new view editor, or if you've been in the Power Apps space, the view editor that we should have had 10 years ago. The sales team member, I want to talk and make sure everybody understands how that license enforcement is going to be happening at the end of June. And then lastly, we'll go over LinkedIn. So, all right, Kanban boards, very cool stuff. This is also a precursor, knock on wood, of what I've been told from the product team at Microsoft that will also be in project operations. So a more complete set will come. Opportunities are the only entity as of now that you are able to set up a Kanban board based on the stages in your business process flow. But you can use a business process flow that you've designed yourself. Only thing you have to make sure is that it is set at the very top of the BPF order. So it has to be the one at the top of that list when you set the order of your business process flows. It needs to be the default one in order for the Kanban board to work. The other thing is that Kanban boards also work for activities now. So you're able to manage and basically see what are my new, what are in progress, and what's done. That goes off of the status. And so using that state code, you can manipulate that if you want to have additional Kanban board columns. All right, the view editor, if you use Power Platform and Power Apps, this should look familiar. If you don't, this probably looks like something out of some science fiction novel if you've been in Dynamics since 4.0 or earlier. Finally, we're getting rid of the old advanced find editor. You just need to make sure that you've applied your release wave 1 and that you're on the latest version. And now when you go to create a personal view, you are going to get this view designer. If you don't see this when you're creating views, when you're doing system views, shame on you, you're doing it in the old solution format. Get over to Power Apps and build your solutions there. But very cool stuff. You'll notice that the column attributes down in the bottom right, you're able to go between your primary entities and your related entities. It is drag and drop. You can reorder, and now the filter conditions are right above it, so you don't have to click all these different little tabs and have modals pop up. Okay. All right, the sales team members. So those of you that are using a team member license for Dynamics, June 30th is the date that this will become enforced. What you need to know is that a team member license will only be able to access the sales team member app. If you have somebody with that license and you've been telling them to go to Sales Hub or whatever other field service, marketing, any of those apps, they cannot. So what does that mean? That means you need to take whatever items that they were navigating to in those other apps and then add them to your model-driven app, Sales Team Member, and then make sure that you add it to the site map navigation. Very important. You've still got over a month left to do this. Do it in your sandbox. If you have questions about it or questions about what the licensing entails for a sales team member, reach out and we'd be more than happy to walk through that with you. And lastly, in this section for me for sales, sales in LinkedIn. If you didn't know, there are licenses and a particular program within LinkedIn that lets you see your sales navigator content natively in Dynamics. Now, this doesn't mean that if you use LinkedIn, you're going to be able to see it. It doesn't mean that if you sign up for the sales professional that you'll see it. You have to have a sales professional team or a sales enterprise license with LinkedIn. We are one of only 15 partners that have coordinated with Microsoft and LinkedIn to help sell their Microsoft relationship sales solution. We have been using this now and are familiar with its content. So if you have questions around that and how that functionality works, feel free to reach out.
Sweet. Power Automate. Thanks, Eric. That's cool. Let's do this. So if you once recall, last fall we were talking about Microsoft Flow. That finally got a new name to match the rest of the Power Platform, and it's now called Power Automate. But today we're going to talk about a couple of different cool new features. But generally speaking, Power Automate is intended to automate repetitive tasks, things that you have to do on a regular basis that cause you to do the same thing over and over again. Humans are much better at not being monkeys than monkeys are. So we'll just do human stuff like this. So in the last couple months here, we've had some pretty big improvements come in the realms of error handling for UI flows and just flows in general. So if you haven't checked any of that out yet, definitely do. Come talk to us about it. The next one here is I'm super excited about. Oh, one more, sorry. is the ability to have a UI flow unattended. So let me break this down for a second. A UI flow allows you to take your mouse and point and click and execute some series of steps in a legacy application that you would normally have to do, and then input fields or input data into that application or pull data out and then store it elsewhere within your flow. Now you have the ability to run an unattended version of that. Previously, you kind of had to push the button and wait for your computer to do its thing. Now you can spin up an unattended automation flow and run that legacy step without you having to sit there and wait for it to do its thing. Super cool. In fact, the first time I saw a UI flow, I'm like, that's pretty cool, except if I have to sit there and wait for it. Now you don't have to sit there and wait for it. As well, you can deal with IME support for UI flows. So if you need to put in characters as text, that's now supported as well. All right, Power Apps. Yeah, double punch for the Power Apps awesomeness here. So you can, with Power Apps, build low code or no code applications very, very quickly. This is a very broad and deep platform that is part of the Power Platform, which allows us to make things pretty quick. So a couple new features to talk about. We've got AI Builder preview models are now generally available. So it's funny they call them preview models now that they're generally available. We probably should call them AI Builder models now that they're generally available. But anyway, that happened just recently. We also got a suite of new COVID response template apps for healthcare workers and companies. So in fact, we're going to talk about this in a minute, but if COVID's impacting you at all, that should be pretty much everybody, then there's an app for that. So moving on. Let's see here, what do I want to talk about? Cool, so AI Builder Preview, which we're just going to call AI Builder Models. So these are super cool. Let's say you've got a text file, or let me back up. Let's say you're a teacher and your students are filling out their a test form, or you've printed out a page and they are filling out their answers. You can now take a picture of that, or a picture of a handwritten invoice, or a picture of whatever you need, and extract the text from that document. This is the text recognition model we're talking about. Additionally, if you've got a lot of text, we can extract the key phrases or the sentiment for that text within Power Apps. We've also got object detection. Microsoft did a pretty cool demo of this that Coca-Cola is using. Oh, not the same people, right? Sorry, all you lovers of Coke. And they go into grocery stores and they take pictures of the locations where their different products are. It extracts from that picture how many objects are in that picture and what product. And then they also use geospatial recognition to recognize where they are in the store, so they can see where things are being pulled off the shelves faster in certain areas without having to count them. Pretty cool. So those are now available in Power Apps, generally available, rather. And if you are like the most of the world right now and you're being impacted by COVID, there are a number of new applications that we can help you implement pretty quick that will help you manage your response to COVID. Microsoft especially, this is the cool part, Microsoft is trying to help people get that done and are offering some additional funds to help implement COVID-related responses within Power Apps. So if you've got questions about how you can have Microsoft pay for a COVID project for you, you should reach out. We'll talk about it. And lastly, this is already a thing available in Dynamics 365, but newly available within Power Apps, newly available on preview. You can now add some virtual reality or mixed augmented reality, there we go, within your Power App. So if you wanted to see what that super cool forklift looks like in your warehouse, you could just pick up your Power App, point it there, and then you've got a good picture. So that's Power Apps. Power Apps and Power Portals. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, so previously there was Microsoft CRM portals, and they were not very easy to use. They were pretty difficult to administer, and Microsoft, I think, finally realized that and now have moved it over to the Power Apps portion of the Power Platform. I think the main things for those of you that have experienced the prior pain with CRM portals and are now, considering if you want to update your program to go over to Power Apps, these are the highlights. Simplified theme and designer, meaning it's much closer to a traditional drag and drop. The elements are easier to control. It's easy to add things. Oh, and by the way, they've got good templates to start from. Power BI can also be embedded. So if it's available to be shared, then you can have embedded Power BI content. The security now is done through the Power Apps admin. So no longer having to worry about all these web roles that you're having to basically recreate the entire security role structure. You can now administrate that through the Power Apps console and that administrative protocol. Lastly, and probably most importantly, is that now instead of having to go through 7 clicks to get a page set up that links to the entities and all those things, you can actually have your development team use web APIs to go through and say, hey, I'd like to make sure that we can, call this to, either create records or create content and controls. So very cool updates. I encourage you to go in, start playing around with Power Apps portals if you haven't. Their pricing is meant to be competitive for the small to medium-sized business and for tracking both we'll call it signed in or anonymous visits, and is not just that traditional flat fee that they used to charge for CRM portals. Very cool content and a great addition to the Power Apps portion of the Power Platform.
Cool. Newest to the family of the Power Platform is the Power Virtual Agent. This went live GA last December, and they're continuing to add new features as with all of the products we're talking about today. The Power Virtual Agent is the easiest way in the world to make a chatbot, period. You can spin something up within a couple minutes and start having interactions with a bot. If you've ever considered trying to get your humans out of the realms of having conversations that are largely handleable by a robot, this is the way to do it. A couple of quick new features for us to talk about. You can now customize a bot's behavior on non-response. So if somebody doesn't answer the bot, you can handle it in different ways. And then cool new one here, if you live in Canada, we have released this to Canada. Yep, lower latency for everybody in Canada. They've done a lot of repairs, maybe not repairs, but bug fixes over the last couple of months that really have solidified the value add of this product. And as well, there's tons of new connectors of places you can interact with the bot. You can now interact in Facebook and Teams and through text messaging. It's becoming pretty awesome. One of the future iterations of this will be able to have a phone conversation with a bot you built in a couple minutes. So it's coming up. I know most of us hate talking to robots on the phone. So generally speaking, though, this is a pretty good upgrade. That's me too, huh? One more. Oh wait, yeah, there we go. There we go. Yep, go on.
Okay. I was excited for you to talk about the flow integration into the virtual agent. Similar to
you know what? That's
call to action.
It's all there. Let's go back. One more. Yeah.
You want to go back to the preset?
Yeah. There we go. It was worth talking about. So Flow has always been part of the virtual agent, but there's now a much better integration between the two. The call and action node has been replaced with a Microsoft Flow node and is just a little bit smoother of an integration between the two. So there you have it.
Do we know when that's coming?
I think that's
Or is it in preview right now?
good question. I'll have to find out.
All right. Okay, insights. So those of you that aren't aware, there are 3 different insights products within the Dynamics family. One is customer service insights, so that helps you with your contact center, number of sentiment analysis, call stats, things like that. The other is sales insights, so projections on forecasts, how closing is going, again, another sentiment analysis. But what we're going to talk about is customer insights. Customer Insights is a customer data platform. It is meant to be able to integrate and unify data from many disparate, separate sources. How you do that is you define all of your sources, and there are over 24 different types of connections. So if anything is able to be connected to, there's probably a hook for it in customer insights. And then what you do is essentially go through and say, well, I've identified a customer in my CRM with this unique identifier. I have one in my commerce system with this identifier. I have one on my website signed in as this. Whatever system you may be using, you get to take those into customer insights and say, if they have the same name, the same email, and the same state as an example, customer insights is smart enough to say, that's the same customer. And then what you can do is build measures or metrics, if you want to think of it that way, whether it's for the person or business measures to say, I want to be able to understand, what's the average online spend, or how many customers do we lose per month? And now you're able to look across all those data sources to figure out how you want to compile those statistics. What's nice about customer insights is that you can turn around and put it into essentially any other product on the Power Platform. Power Apps, Dynamics, Power BI. You can take these tiles and insert them into other places. Additionally, you can build models, so machine learning and AI models to say, let's try and predict when somebody may drop, or how can we predict spend and what are the attributes that build that? And because you are able to pull from multiple sources of data, you have a bigger set of information to be able to say, this one customer has all of these affecting variables. Now let's build a model on it. It's extremely cool. It is a per tenant, so it's not a per user license. And as I mentioned, we are exploring ways to use this and going to be focusing on a touch customer insights offering here shortly.
All right, your favorite section, Exchange Online updates.
That's why we came.
That's right. Let's jump into this. So I mentioned this in the last tech update that this was coming. This is now dropped, and it may be applicable to you if you have more than 5,000 people in your business. In short, if Exchange Online detects a reply to all to over 5,000 recipients going to 10 people within an hour, bingo, magic happens. It then blocks subsequent replies in this thread for 4 hours and sends a nice little email to the sender saying, this conversation is too busy with too many people. So this is really nice for big organizations. This is where their starting point is. I anticipate this number dropping to affect more smaller organizations, but this is now out there and is in place for you big organizations that have lots of accounts and don't have to deal with the reply to all stories now. So it's kind of nice. All right, next thing here, an update on legacy protocols. I've mentioned this before. They have delayed the blocking of them significantly until the second half of 2021 for people actively using it. If you get a net new tenant, it's disabled up front. Existing tenants with no usage of this will be blocked as of October of this year. Okay, so some changes to that rollout and the timing on that. Another big update here is the fact that we can do OAuth, or modern authentication, for IMAP and SMTP connections directly to Exchange Online. So that's wonderful. What clients actually support OAuth authentication today? Thunderbird, and you can also get it in Thunderbird. So in other words, there's not much out there that'll do this. If you have custom apps that are using IMAP or SMTP to interact with Exchange Online, you should plan on retooling these apps to use a modern authentication flow for IMAP and SMTP. There's all kinds of reference information and links on how to do that with the ADAL libraries for modern authentication. So quick little update on that, and that's all I've got for Exchange. So in light of time, let's.
Is an awesome tool for analytics. They've, in the recent weeks, been able to, or recent weeks, just announced a couple different enterprise level capabilities to Power BI that are super cool. So I don't know if this slide came in there. Nope, didn't yet, but that's okay. Coming in this fall, you'll be able to connect to multiple data sets in the same report. So this is not what we're looking at now, but this is huge. So if you've got 2 different data sets in Power BI, or you've got an analysis services data set, you want to add things to it, the ability to combine that into the same data set within a report is coming. It's super cool. As well with lifecycle development or lifecycle management for applications. We'll have a dev, test, and prod if you're using premium. This is another big feature coming. So onto this slide that we're actually looking at. If you go back one for me. There we go. You can now update your page based on the changing of measures. So previously we could only do this in the service. Now we can do this here in the desktop application as well, as often as every 2 seconds. So that's pretty quick if you're trying to figure out if things are changing, and then refresh your page to show when things are changing there. So it's pretty good. Next, we've added a couple different export options. You can now go to PDF, or you've always been able to go to PDF and PowerPoint, but you also now can export to PNGs. As well, you've got the opportunity to add these additional methods of export to the automated email feature. So if you want to subscribe to a report to come to you, you can add this new feature there. Let's see here. Yeah, go to the next one, next page here. This is cool. If you have ever had a user come to you and say, like, I want to only see this version of the dashboard or this version of the report, you can now allow personalized visuals for an individual. So when they log into the report, they'll see a customized version of that visual. They'll be able to make their own visuals, but they can kind of customize what it looks like to a degree and save it as a personal bookmark. So if they want to look at data in different formats than what you've already previously given them, you can do that. And the April 2020 release for Power BI is now out. That happened earlier this month in May, but they had a lot of cool updates in there. So if you haven't seen the new features coming in Power BI, go take a look at the additional new features that we haven't talked about today. Take a look at the blog, and yeah, there you go. On to cybersecurity.
Awesome. Okay, so relative to Azure Active Directory, a couple of quick updates here. Administrative units. These have been in the works for years at Microsoft. They are now exposed and you can use them. The whole point of these things are for delegated administration of your Azure AD users. So this is a big deal. Think OUs, traditional Active Directory organizational units. That concept, if you will, is now available in Azure. It's cool. It's where you can create these OU administrative units. You can assign people to an administrative unit. And then you can have administrators that can manage those people in those administrative units, if you will. Going right along with administrative units is a new feature called My Staff. mystaff.microsoft.com takes you to that door. You have to enable it. It's a new preview feature, but it is in tenants now, and you'll see this here. There's a little screenshot there where you flip that on. You do have to have administrative units set up in order to take any advantage of My Staff. It depends on that feature there. It also allows for SMS text-based authentication for users here, and you can manage those mobile phone numbers there in the My Staff experience. You can reset passwords in the My Staff experience. So in short, it allows you to delegate some of these basic administrative things to non-help desk people, just the business owners, and so they can support their staff, if you will. Okay. Another really cool thing that I'm excited about is new consent for third-party apps. Consent experience. Let's see if we can say consent 3 times. I don't know. It's very much improved, and it has way better governance on third-party apps and integration to Azure AD for single sign-on. So in short, what this means is when apps, by default, users in an Office 365 or Azure AD tenant can go out to the wild web and find something that says, hey, sign in with Office 365. And they can click that, and it comes across, and that app becomes an app in your tenant with the ability to read users' data, and the user has consented for whatever the crap that app asks for. Heaven forbid an administrator provides consent to some of these apps that gives way more permissions to this app to do stuff in your tenant. So lots of great updates that have come there where you can control the flow. So a user now doesn't have the ability to consent, but the administrator is notified. The user can type a reason why they want this app and what they're using it for. That starts an email trigger to the administrator. He can then go into the admin center and see this app waiting to be consented, who requested it, what their justification was, what their permissions are, and they can then approve that app for that user or for the entire org, etc. These are all settings inside the Azure ED tenant that you configure. For what this is worth, we've updated our Azure ED and Office 365 tenant help check and review to include these new experiences and what our suggestions are. And so that's all dovetailed and updated on our tenant help check. So that's all I got on identity updates there. So
a bunch of updates to Business Central, printing, outputting different documents, invoices, stuff like that's been greatly improved. Sending stuff directly to an attachment's better. There are faster screen load times, better use of space. There's a new secure edit and Excel feature that's a big improvement. And then they've made some improvements on integration with the common data service and some stuff there. So
the ability to connect to Dynamics or Business Central through the common data service will hugely improve your ability to report on things in Power BI or other tools.
And to use Flow as an integration tool. So if we've been doing that for clients, that's helped us immensely.
Absolutely. So they've got some big improvements in Power Automate and Flow, and then just some out of the box workflow notification stuff as well. So there's a lot in Business Central. If you guys have questions there, please reach out. We'd be happy to show you some of those new features and go over that stuff with you. On the next piece, for customers that are on Dynamics GP looking to move to a cloud-based ERP solution, especially as people think about enabling remote workforce for your accounting team, Business Central has much better access and better security for remote workers. There are some big improvements there. So we've built a fast path upgrade to get to a new version of GP, which then allows you to use a Microsoft solution called Intelligent Edge to migrate to BC. And so we do have some migration paths there for you that help. And BC has a lot of improved features there. If you're on GP, an old version of GP, and you'd like to talk about moving to a newer version, we've got a very slick solution there. If you're on GP or a legacy Dynamics solution and you're interested in moving to BC to leverage some of those features of a cloud-based ERP, there's a good process there that we'd be happy to go over with you as well. So thank you guys. I think we're right at time. I did not think we'd get through everything today. So good job, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We hope this was valuable and helpful. We hope this gave you guys good insights and ideas on how you can continue to improve your organization and enable your users. We do have a survey available that you will be seeing. We would love your input. Please tell us how we can make this better, how we can make this more valuable, what you liked about it that we should keep doing. And then if there are areas where you want help, we exist to help you guys implement, use these technologies, and make you a hero within your organization. Please let us know if there's projects you'd like to engage us in or what we can do to better help you as our customers and as the people we're looking to support. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.